Hello again. This will be, this will be video number 6. And what I have posted already on YouTube, as you know or may not know, are 4 of my beginning video, my introductory videos. This is also part of that grouping. I suppose I should introduce myself to those that haven't been to this site yet. I'm James Exum. My writing name, like Mark Twain with Samuel Langhorne Clemens, my writing name is a yogi name, yogic name, I suppose. And it's called Sakshi. Sakshi means the witness. And it's not just my pen name, it's the name I have given to my very soul. My soul and I grow closer every year, not out of the convenient fact that my time on this earth grows lesser every year, but it's a nice coincidence. So last time I was speaking, and by the way, I am a yogi. I am a yogic scholar also. My specialty is the comparative studies of religions. That's how I found yoga, and why I stayed with it, because I found it to be, this is back in 1973, I found it to be 474. I found it to be the most logical of all of the philosophies of all the different religions I had encountered up to that time. Of course, I was very young. I was just in my early 20s. But I was always ahead of my time as far as reading and putting my life together and so forth. So I left off last time. I'm reading from a paper that I wrote a while back, a very short while back. And basically the title of this is the history of world yogic philosophy. That's the history of world yoga. It spans the East, the West, from the days of the beginning of yoga up to me reading this to you right now. Pretty much it's, well, not up to this second, but it comes forward in time real fast, faster than you'd think. So the mystic origins of a gentleman named Adi Yogi, who was the very first yogi. I'm not going to go into that because I have a certain amount of time. I'm trying to keep this under 30 minutes. Older men have a problem with going off on tangents when they speak, so I'm trying to discipline myself into not doing that. As I said, this will be my 6th video, and I've had to train myself, discipline myself to stay on track here, to stay on the path. Dharma is the path. The righteous part of the path in life is called Dharma. The righteous way in life of living and actions is called karma. You probably already know these 2 terms. Again, my earlier videos will cover that material and those thoughts and those tenets of yoga. They're not just words in yoga. These are part of our practice and our daily lives, and these are the rules of the road, so to speak. So I started off with the roots of the Vedic, and again, read the earlier books you'll learn, or go to Yogapedia, look up Vedic, V-E-D-I-C, and pre-Vedic. I start off with the roots of the Vedic and the pre-Vedic era. And I traveled through the Indus Valley, and then the followers of Adi Yogi came along, and he taught them, and they carried off after a while, after they learned these marvelous lessons. Not just the asanas, the physical lessons, the body, like you see in the studios. That's been adopted more and more in the West. But I'm more interested in my teachings. I won't call them classes, I won't call them seminars, I won't call them anything but what they are. I'm just sharing knowledge with you. These are strictly, well, there's a little bit of leeway, but I'm strictly within the subject range of the philosophy of yoga. That's why you see it in my titles on YouTube. I love YouTube so far, and I'm not looking for followers. I said in the early, I'm just looking to spread my word before I leave this earth. I think it's a good thing to do, and I intend to do it. So we've traveled out of those ancient settlements in the Indus Valley where Adi Yogi was. His 7 followers were the Sapti Rishis. Rishis just mean holy men, it also means teachers. It has a lot of meanings, but just stick with that. Stick with men that teach and they have holy thoughts and all. So in this exploration that I've journeyed, and you're joining now if you're serious about this, and I hope you are. If not, you dropped by, and I'm happy you got to hear a little bit about this wonderful science of yoga. It's not a religion, it's a science. And it teaches not only how to live as a human on this earth, but it covers also the wisdom of the ages. That's also one of my headings, I believe, for one of my videos. It's an everlasting tradition. It began with questions. It will end with questions, because life basically is what happens in between you asking questions about, Mom, what is that? And you ask that doctor, oh, is this my last day, sir? Or ma'am? But you've already answered that question yourself, because at that point, you got the inside track on what's really happening. So let's move forward now. Like I said, yoga is not simply a practice, it's a living tradition, a philosophy, a discipline, a way of life that is transversed not only continents, but time itself. So we've gone through those historical roots. At first I tried to speak on this vast subject of yoga without using any kind of notes at all. And that's what if you look at those early videos, you see I just ran out of time and I really didn't cover a lot of ground. So I'm trying to discipline myself, like I said. So that's where we were, and you can go back and catch up if you like. There's not that many, so you can catch up pretty fast and just skip forward. Not every word I say is a holy pronouncement. I can assure you, nothing holy about my pronouncements. I'm just a man born in southeast Georgia, West Georgia. Grew up at Charleston, South Carolina. Had a pretty normal life. Got into business, did quite well, retired early. I was around 50 when I retired, and then really got into my studies. Okay. So once you get past the Vedic era, you're actually still in it. There's several books in there. Veda means the end of. So at the end of the era of all that sacred knowledge being written down, there come the Vedas. And the Vedas are usually just opinions or commentaries or critiques. Yes, yogis critique other yogi writers, believe it or not. I'm not saying they're vicious. They may slap each other upside the head with a lily. That's about as rough as my crowd gets. So those ancient seers, those rishis I told you about, those sapti rishis, the 7 wise men, the 7 beginners, the ones that spread the knowledge throughout the earth. They delved deeply into the area of consciousness. Well, consciousness, you'll notice in maybe the last 2, I think maybe just the 4th one I know for sure. Consciousness is a very important part of yoga. The knowledge of consciousness, the study of your consciousness. It falls as the middle word in a wonderful 3-syllabic word called Satchitananda. Sat is existence, Chit is consciousness, Ananda is bliss. And you want to be an existing being in the conscious state of bliss, all simultaneously. And in one of my videos, I'm going to start calling them vids. I hate saying video, I don't know why. But in one of my vids, I explained how I've gone right to the edge of that blissful place of existence within consciousness. I didn't stay, but I've had moments. And as I said in that particular video, anyone that tells you they're enlightened in yoga, and you know, man's action speaks a lot louder than his words. Anyone that tells you that and then invites you out to the local nightclubs on that Saturday night until they turn into zombies and you have to lug them to the car and ease them into the back seat and take them home, they're not enlightened folks. There's very few enlightened people in history, very few. I'm moving towards it, but I'm not there, and I have never claimed to be. So once we get past the Upanishads, which were really the major books, you can look these up again in Yogapedia. They will give you a list of them. I'm not going to spend my time naming them or going into descriptions of the different books, because I think there's 108. I think they started out with 200, and these were written about 8 to 200 before the current era, BCE they call it. In my day we call it BC. But those books, especially one in that group called it Katha, K-A-T-H-A, Upanishad. It's pronounced U, not up. Upanishad. For example, the metaphors of the chariot and the driver and the passenger and the horses and the reins, that will be an entire video by itself in the future. That's a remarkable, if you look up just one Upanishad, go to the Katha, K-A-T-H-A. So I've given you a sort of a place to start, and you'll catch up with where we are, or where I am. So during time, yoga emerged as a systemized spiritual discipline, which it is. I'm spiritual, but you know, when I'm walking down the street and somebody comes up to me, it's not the first thing I start talking about. I try to confine it. Really, I don't even talk about it here in my retirement community. I live in a very nice complex in South Austin, Texas. And I don't talk about it every time I walk. There's nothing more boring than someone throwing their theosophy on you. Theosophy, there's the word. Theosophy. So during this time, that systemized spiritual discipline, you know, the ethics, the precepts, the meditation, the techniques, the esoteric knowledge, the transcendence, the dualistic way of thinking, the non-dualistic way of thinking, and we'll get into that. That's a meal to be served on another day. But when you're looking through those books online and in Yogapedia, I love Yogapedia. I also love Wikipedia. Those two are they're like cousins to me as far as research. They're marvelous. Of course, Wiki is it's a deeper well to draw from. Yoga is more of a contemporaneous, and so it has a narrower bandwidth parameters, but both are good, very good. So once we skip out of in the last talk I took us from anywhere from 400 to 800 before the Common Era, backing up. Now in the beginning of this talk, I've just taken us past the pre-Vedic, post-Vedic, up to the Upanishads, which the Upanishads actually came before the Vedas. It's kind of out of turn, but when you're talking about eras and all that, they're so commingled, but the Upanishads were after the basic Vedas, they were before the Vedas. The Vedas came later. Well, again, I'm getting you confused, so I'll stop. But we come to a gentleman, we left with Adi Yogi in the last one. Now we introduce, I like to call these folks, I see the world as a stage, just like Shakespeare did. And a lot of yoga philosophy deals with it as a stage, as opposed to, or chessboard. If you go to the Middle East, it's a chessboard. Every culture has their own way of looking at it. But I see it as a stage, and I see these main people that populate that stage as the main character, so to speak, in the play. I'm a character in the play, you're a character. I may be a walk-on, I may be a understudy, but we're all characters in the play of God. And that play is called the play of Leela, L-I-L-A, Leela. I'll be back in one moment. I need to get a drink of water. I'll be right back. Well, I'm back, and as you can tell, I got my water. I have to take my evening pills. I try to take them around 9 o'clock. It's a little later than that here now, but I have them now, and they're in my system. I have several problems, as you'll learn through these videos. The major one I have is Parkinson's disease. Well, truthfully, it's not Parkinson's. It's a Parkinsonian disease. You need to learn this because you may have it in your family someday, and Lord help, you don't have it in your body someday. But I've had it almost 20 years now, and I'm still doing things, aren't I? I mean, it hasn't taken a major toll on me. It's taken the usage of my legs away. I walk like a little child. I just kind of toddle about, little tiny baby steps, I call them. That's okay. So back to where we were. Oh, and I have my glasses because I'm about now. I was doing most of what I was doing. I was glancing notes here and there, but most of the things I was saying to you, I was doing from memory. I have a decent memory, if not some people say extraordinary. I won't say that because vanity is not part of yoga. Truth, by the way, is, this is why you will hear me correct myself a lot, that's self-editing. And you'll hear me come back, say, from getting my water, and I'll tell you all the other things I was doing while I was gone. Truthfulness is an important thing in life. It's a major part of being a yogi, but it's also not only an important, but a necessary part of a young person's life. Because what someone hears you say today, 30 or 40 years down the road, you may be in a different position, they may be in a different position, and so you're going, they're a CEO of a company, you're a 20 or 30 year virgin. Well, I hope not. A version is the word I was seeking. A version of, say, a chemical engineer or a hydrologist or whatever. You're up in the sciences, you got a good paying position, you're in the top figures as far as income. You walk in there and the guy sitting in HR is one of your old buddies. That's karma. I know that laugh of mine is horrible. I'm sorry, I'm working on it. Well, I've been working on it for almost 60-something years. It's not sinister, it's just my laugh. So there you are. Now, fellow, this is a lesson, by the way. A lesson in life. Yoga is the science of life. It's the science of a lot of things. It's pretty much all-encompassing. And so you look at that fellow, and he looks at you, and he goes, "Oh, I remember you. I remember this fellow. He used to lie to me like a dog." And now he's coming. Let me see what he's looking at. When he looks at his paper, oh yeah, there you are. Oh, I see the name, but it didn't hit home till you walked in. He's saying all this mentally. He's prepping himself for this interview. And I've held positions in the HR department. In fact, I was head of it at a medical clinic here in South Austin for a number of years. So yes, I know how that works. So what I'm saying is, a lie today may not come back to haunt you for maybe 30 years. But that's karma. People think karma is, there's variations on karma, various stages of karma, varied accelerations of karma. Sometimes it doesn't hit you, well, sometimes it doesn't hit you at all. Sometimes, like in dodgeball, you dodge a bullet, or at least that rubber ball. Okay, so we're going to move from the Vedas through the Upanishads, And now we're going to go to one of my dear, dear friends on the stage of yoga, one of my favorite actors on the stage of yoga, on the stage of life, around second century. I've heard as late as fourth century. His name was, it's a wonderful, his name, you'll read it, it's Patanjali. It looks like Pantanjali, Pantanjali, if you do it phonetically, but it's Patanjali, Patanjali. The first syllable soft, tan, Jali. Tan has the accent grave, as they say in the French, and Jali, it's soft. So it starts off, ends soft. Tan in the middle, just think you got a good tan. Tan in the middle. And he's a sage. And he was also a commentary, and at the age of 10, he was, just like Mozart was writing symphonies, they say at 4. I don't know about that, but they say he was. I don't see how his little fingers reached across, spread across the keyboard, but maybe he had giant hands. I don't know. What I hear, I take with a grain of salt. But they say that Patanjali was writing criticisms of some of the major works of not only the Vedas, but the Upanishads, which are major works, when he was 10 years old. I can't doubt it, because sometimes the Creator, I call God the Creator. In yoga, he's called Brahma, he's called the Absolute, he's called the one without a second. There's not hundred, but there's dozens of names. But pick out the one you like. I like the Creator, okay? So here we get back to Patanjali. Around 2nd century BC, some people think 4th, I'm gonna say 4th. He seems a little bit too modern than the 2nd century to me, BCE. Some people even have him at 800. 800. So you'll learn this as if you get into the books, into the writings, deep into the pages of the sacred text. You'll learn. But there was a pivotal moment when he was very young. That sage I'm talking about, that Patanjali, not Pantanjali, Patanjali, composed what is called the Yoga Sutras. And really, if you're new to these not lessons, but these talks, or if you're new to yoga, that might not be a bad place to start. And they make these little inexpensive books. I'd say they're 5 inches by 3 inches, something. Oh, I almost did the priest thing. They're like 5 inches by 3 inches, and usually they have a blue cover on them, and soft backs, but the cover's rather stiff, and they last. I had one that lasted me for years. It's a good reference book, isn't it? And it starts off with the basics. It tells you what yoga, the definition of yoga. It tells you that, and then and each sutra is like 2 lines of literature that are contained in a book that's feeding you knowledge, emitting knowledge out to you from the wisdom of those 2 lines, those couplets they call them in Shakespearean days. So there's a good book for it. The book written by the young gentleman maybe, that codified. There's his claim to fame, not only his claim to fame, but that's the one thing most people remember by. He codified. He was responsible for the codification of yoga. He kind of took all that knowledge, been out there forever, and he just kind of simplified it in one little book. It's wonderful. Yeah. That work is systematic, it's transcendent, it narrows the boundaries, it makes it accessible to aspirants, aspirants, all the people that are going to learn about this and learn about it seriously. And it's called the Yoga Sutras. Sutras are those 2 lines. They match up. And there's a real good, I won't tell you which one to buy. I'm not going to even tell you that. I'm not going to tell you there's a really good one to buy, but he was a contemporaneous Swami. He's on the internet. You can find him. He's an older man. And I'll give you one more clue. He was the Swami that was at Woodstock. So if you put all those clues together, you'll figure out who he is. I'm not going to do it. You can do it in your research. And then we come forward in time again. We're coming up to the modern era today. Then you get into Hatha Yogi and Tantra Yogi. And the centuries unfold, and the clock on the wall spins at the almost like those atoms flying around over in Switzerland, that Hadrian, that nuclear, that atom busting device with all the magnetic walls. You know what I'm talking about. So, and interestingly too, outside of that facility is a statue of Shiva. Shiva stands outside, a marvelous statue of it, incidentally. So you have Hatha Yoga, you've got, well, there's dozens. Now I think there's goat yoga, I think there's hot love yoga. I think you're talking about the hot love for your fellow man, sort of like Christian love. I don't, let's hope they're not going somewhere else with that. So if you hear in the background a little barking in the distance, that's my parrot, and that's why I'm trying to do this at night when he's sleeping. And he's waking up, so I'm going to pause one more time and go calm him down, and I'll be back.